Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the show. I'm your host, Levi with Mailbox Money. Today's guest is Jeff Lochner. Jeff is a farmer and rancher based in South Dakota and has spent much of his career working in and around agriculture cooperatives. He's passionate about the idea that food security isn't just an agricultural issue, it's a national one. Jeff, welcome to the show. I'm glad you're here.
Well, thank you, Levi. What a great opportunity to visit with you today, and always welcome these types of opportunities to take a look at food and ag, which I spent my whole career in.
Amazing. Jeff, if you don't mind giving the people kind of some personal background on yourself to start, let them know who you are a little bit here.
Yeah, thanks. So, I am a fourth generation farmer rancher in East Central South Dakota. I'm not sure how far out your audience ranges. I'm guessing it's quite a ways, but
Yes.
to basically, to pinpoint that a little easier for people, I usually tell them that our farm and ranch operation is located about 100 miles south of North Dakota and about 100 miles west of Minnesota and 100 miles north of Nebraska. So I hope I got the directions right on that. But it is basically equidistant between our three neighbor states, and that's the easiest way to describe it. So
Very nice.
we have a diversified crop and livestock farm, about 6,000 acres. And my wife, Myrna, is involved in the operation. She and I have been back on the farm now for about 44 years. Prior to that, I was a farm credit system lender in Iowa and Nebraska after I graduated from South Dakota State many years ago. So my wife and I moved back into the operation. My dad had been injured in a farm accident, had been hurt pretty badly by a bull,
Oh,
and
wow.
so that kind of triggered our decision to move back. He was very slow to recover, and my mother was struggling to keep everything going and stuff with our family farm operation. So made the move back. My dad recovered from that and just
Good.
passed away here a few years ago at 89. One of these old cowboys that's pretty amazing. They're hard individuals, and so yeah, that was the move worked out very well for us. We have four adult children, two of which are in state in South Dakota. Our youngest, Drew, is runs the day-to-day operations on our farm and
Okay.
ranch, and he will be a fifth generation. And then we have another daughter that lives about 40 miles northwest of here, who's married to a rancher north of Miller, and she is a nurse like her mom. My wife is a retired critical care nurse, and then we have two other adult kids that live in Tennessee and in Texas. So
Very cool.
that's a quick rundown on the family and stuff. So, but yeah, I mean, so with the operation, Levi, I guess I would add, wheat, corn, soybeans, a lot of forages, pretty sizable cow herd. So a typical operation in eastern South Dakota.
Very good. Very good. I gotta ask, you said you brought your wife into the operation and everything. Did she always know that farming was on the table marrying you, or how did that journey go?
Well, I could pull her in on the interview, but I suspect that you'd have trouble editing to make everything match up. uh, no, we were very happy when we were living in Iowa before we moved, and again, she had a great job as a nurse, and I was an ag lender, and so had these events probably not occurred, I mean, I can't say that I wouldn't have accepted the opportunity to come back to our family farm operation, but I really enjoyed the challenge that I was in. And of course, this was many years ago. There was a lot of stress in the farm sector and very challenging. But I enjoyed that, learned a lot of lessons. And so when the opportunity for us came to return here, we had to have a lot of discussions, and there was a little bit of trepidation about it and stuff. But it worked out for us to raise our family here and stuff. And so we did resolve all that.
Good. Good. Going again back to you said you were an egg lender. Kind of walk us through what it's like on both sides of the table, being the lender and being the actual farmer there.
Yes, It's good and bad, I would say, Levi. I mean, because I've had some great relationships over the years, and of course, I have a lot of money pushed across the table to me now as a borrower, as much
Yep.
as I did back in the day when I was a lender. When I made loans for different producers in those areas I mentioned, and so it's uh, I think the most interesting thing about that relationship, about having been on both sides of the desk, is that you learn what to do and what not to do. And I joke and I've told a lot of people over the years. I said I've learned what to do basically from my parents, our neighbors, from role models that I had growing up in the farm sector. And I learned a lot of really good things of what to do as a lender, but I also learned what not to do. Because you see the business of so many different operations and the
Yeah.
decisions they make, and so very good learning experience. And I like to believe that I took a lot of those learnings and have leveraged them in a different way. I mean, to benefit our operation, and that's not to say anything poor of the people that the past relationships I had with people as a lender, but you learn lessons, you see the things, and hopefully pick up a few trends.
Awesome. Would you mind maybe sharing one or two of kind of some easy pitfalls that maybe people fall into?
Yeah, they're kind of the obvious things, Levi. I mean, again, with any business, whether it's a farm and ranch or it's a main street business, if that particular company or business has to borrow money, it's so important that it be borrowed for the right things. I mean, that you can generate revenue from it, that it's growing your business regardless of what it is or where it is. And also that debt, if you take on debt, borrowed money, that it be structured properly. I mean, so that you can you can handle it, you can make the payments, you can use it to get you from point A to point B to grow your business, and still have the obligation, but not be constrained with the debt isn't structured properly. It's causing some problems from a revenue or from a cash flow point of view, and there's many other things too. But that's probably the main thing, is the wise use of debt. I'm not opposed to borrowed money, because it takes money to make money, so they say.
Absolutely.
But it has to be done in a right manner. And the lenders now are so much more sophisticated with how they do that, the tools that borrower, that business has. And so it's very encouraging to see that move in. And now with the advent of AI and stuff, it really is a game changer in terms of how these lender borrower relationships will be set up.
Very nice. Yeah, that's thank you for sharing that. It's nice to hear from a guy who gets both perspectives on that. I kind of mentioned it in the intro that you said food security is national security. What does that kind of mean in practical terms for people who don't really get agriculture?
Yeah, that's a great question, and thanks for bringing that up. So, I'm very much concerned about, this is a multi-generational farm and business that we have, and we're surrounded. There are many people across the United States have had some great opportunities to travel, to deal with a lot of different people in rural areas, and farmers are farmers wherever you go, and so they have a vested interest to make sure that um, family farm agriculture and the basis of a lot of things that originated with our country at its very beginnings. People want to see that those continue. And so when we move into modern times, where these businesses now are very big, there's lots of investment money that's come in and stuff,
Mhm.
and I get calls on a very frequent basis from venture capitalists, from private equity firms, lots of outside capital looking for a place to deploy. And food and ag is a very attractive sector, and has been now for a number of years. It wasn't always that way. I never had the interest and I'm old enough to recall all that too. But when I see these groups, these pools, these funds want to come in, want to take an active hand in agriculture. Some of them want to own land, as do foreign countries, and that topic's been out in the public now for a while. I get
That's a
really
hot one.
concerned about, what does it mean for if the United States were to see its ability to supply food to the world, if we were to see that diminished. And I know right now we've got excesses of a lot of the commodities. South America is a huge producer now. The United States has some surpluses of corn and soybeans and other commodities. But still, I mean, it's so important that we maintain that position, that we have those warehouses, we have that extra supply, and we'll manage through the short term supply and demand situation. So that's a concern. And also, too, I had the experience years ago. I was at Harvard Business School. I had the good
Oh,
fortune to do a case study with them many years ago about the entire cooperative system as it relates to food and ag. Great experience. And while I was at Harvard Business School, this was in 2008, by the way, so a while back, but there was a shortage of food, especially of corn, to Mexico, to the Philippines, to Indonesian stuff. And it was basically white corn that they mill to make flour for their food products. And so
yeah.
the Minister of Agriculture for Indonesia was at the table where I was in Cambridge, Massachusetts, a small group, and literally received a call from his home country of Indonesia, the capital of Jakarta. And this man rose from the table and said, I have to return home. There's rioting across our country. Government buildings are being attacked. There are civilians being hurt in Indonesia because they simply cannot procure enough food for their families. And that was a really a tough example, but it really brought it home for me where our country is blessed with surpluses and abundance, but many other parts of the world aren't. So regardless of distribution problems and how different governments control the amount of food coming into their country, that situation can really take on some negative aspects in a hurry. So since then, I've really been an advocate to make sure that we can stabilize food supplies in a lot of countries.
Yeah, I'm thank you for sharing that because yeah, I think a lot of people, you take food for granted around here because it's not a concern or worry for the majority of us, right?
Yeah.
Versus like you said in that situation where there's literal cities that, aren't getting the food that they need and it's very eye-opening.
Yeah, it sure is, and there's many other examples too. But it's encouraging to see now of late. I'm actually working with a group right now, kind of a think tank type group that believes that national security really does need to be elevated, not just in Washington, but amongst industry and other sectors too. And so it's been a fascinating job working with them because they've got some specific ideas about how they want to advance these ideas. And they're taking a lot of input from actual producers like
Yeah.
myself, as well as the other agribusiness industry. So we'll see where that goes.
That is that Idealist Innovation? Is that the name of
It
the group that
is.
I saw?
It
Okay.
is, yeah, and I've
Very,
also I've had exposure to some other groups. Idealist is kind of the latest, and these are people I've dealt with before on some other projects. So excited about the prospects for them.
yeah. What are you kind of seeing right now, being the biggest disconnect between innovation and what farmers actually need?
Uh, I,
It's
I
a
wish
it's a
I
big
wish
one.
I wish I had a dime for the number of times I've been asked that because I'd have a dollar in my pocket pretty easy. But anyway, it is a great question, and innovation is something personally I've worked a lot with it with our farm and ranch with our son who is very much involved in a lot of those things. We've done a lot of cutting edge stuff for innovation in production ag and some other things. And I've worked with some software companies that want to innovate and they want to come up with creative solutions for day-to-day issues for farming. The problem, the disconnect as I see it, Levi, is every producer that I've met, nearly every producer that I've met, has to know what's in it for us. What's in it for my family? Is it going to create more work? Is it going to be expensive? Is it going to really bog down our day-to-day operation, because farmers and ranchers have so much to do every day, and they're extremely good managers. Most are. They want to innovate, but the community out there that's trying to supply products to production ag is getting a lot closer, but they're not quite there yet with that innovation. Now, I would go one step further real quick, and I'll wind up my
Of
point
course.
here. I believe that all innovation in the production of food has to be tied to risk management. Again, as a former lender, having lived through the 1980s, the farm crisis that happened across our country back then, I have some very specific examples of what happened if risk is not managed properly or the
Yeah.
tools are not there for those producers. It's a combination of both. And so I've worked extensively to try to coordinate the actual risks, the physical risks that producers have, the market risk, the financial risk. We have the means now with artificial intelligence and machine learning and all of those things to bring it closer. Will it be perfect? No, but I maintain that the more tools that producer has in the toolbox, it improves their chances of success, depending on how they can use that and what type of management information they can gain.
Amazing. Yeah, you going through all that, it just makes me think there's a lot of hats that producers figuratively and literally are putting on today. It's not as simple as just putting some crop in the ground and harvesting it anymore, is it?
Yeah, yeah. There, and you're right. There's a lot of different hacks that are out there. I'm saying if we can integrate more of those,
Yeah.
and there, I mean, there's so many facets of what I just said. So I'm working to that degree, and we're getting closer to the goal. It's not,
Good.
it's not within immediate sight, but getting all the more closer.
That kind of leads me to, obviously, you said you've been around, you've seen the highs, the lows, and everything in between there. Coming up in the future, let's say maybe 5, 10 years down the road, and then the more distant future. What things have you excited, and maybe what are a few things that are a little bit concerning?
Uh, well, for the older members of your audience, uh, I guess, and I would probably identify with that. I think, the concern about the instability in global affairs and stuff is huge. I mean, I didn't think in my lifetime that I would see food being used as a weapon, and now, I mean, and I'll specifically name the Ukraine Russia conflict. I mean, there's been a lot of their food production and their food supply chains be affected by the war, and they find ways to do that, but it's now actively viewed as something that could be a threat, and that's a direct threat to national security. It ties into our point from a minute ago here. That's probably the 80,000 foot level concern that I have on bringing it closer down to ground level. The resilience of our producers and increasingly those farmers and ranchers around the world and livestock producers and stuff. I mean, they're going to find a way to adapt, and that ability really leads a lot of confidence with me or gives me a lot of confidence after having dealt with so much of the climate change issue, um, oversupply, undersupply, supply chain disruption, those types of things. So in our country, we've got a great generation that's out there, your age and all the way up a few years and stuff. They're going to be all right. We just have to get through this current period. Ag is cyclical, as we know,
Hmm.
oftentimes runs in 7 or 8 year cycles. I believe that those have held up in time. I mean, the charts pretty much prove a lot of it. And so this cycle may prove pretty difficult, but I think we've got good underpinnings in place. We've got good structure in place, and we'll make our way through that. So that's kind of I didn't really boil it down specifics for you, Levi, but yeah,
That's all right.
I am confident in the future of agriculture in this country and around the world.
That's amazing. That's good to hear. Jeff, for those who would want to connect with you and learn more about what you and the initiatives that you're working with are doing, where would you send them to?
Well, they can contact me personally at
Beautiful.
any time, and so I also too work a lot in the co-op space. I've got a long career with the grain and agronomy co-ops. I just finished 20 years on the board of AgTegra, our co-op in Aberdeen, South Dakota, a very large co-op, as well as I served 2 terms on the Land O'Lakes board. So I saw uh, food and ag from a lot different perspective as Land O'Lakes as a consumer company too.
Yeah.
So I would say involvement in your co-op. If you have questions about the things we've talked about, contact your co-op. They love to talk about that stuff. But again, I have this conversation with lots of different groups and more than willing to continue that.
Beautiful. Awesome. Well, Jeff, really appreciate your time and talking and walking us through what it is that you're doing and what kind of the agricultural space is going through and has gone through and what's ahead. Thank you so much for, again, taking your time to talk us through that.
Yeah, my pleasure, and enjoyed the talk.
Awesome. Well, thank you everyone for listening and spending your time with us. We'll see you guys on the next one.